Spider-Man has one of the most, if not the most, famous rogues gallery in comics. But for every Green Goblin, Venom, and Dr. Octopus, there's a dozen of Spidey's villains you've never heard of. So join me, Rambling Rob, as I take a look at some of Spidey's forgotten villains from the 90s.
Rambling Rob.
Armada. Armada was the first original villain of his own that Ben Reilly faced when he took up the mantle of Spider-Man. Now Armada was by no means a chameleon. Armada had no superhuman powers. He's a tech villain. He had his own high-tech suit of armor, which gives him the usual superhuman strength, reflexes, and resistance to injuries. He also had a fleet of individually named robots he controls. He was very attached to these robots and would get visibly upset when they were destroyed. He was hired by Mysterio to steal an experimental digital image transmitter chip to help Beck create a TV channel that could hypnotize people. Although Spider-Man intervened, Armada was able to succeed in his mission and delivered the chip to Mysterio. Armada would team up with Mysterio to take on Spider-Man a couple more times, but failed each time. And I feel like they really tried with Armada, but the fan reception just wasn't there. Not even a costume change could save him from obscurity. The last time he was seen was in attendance at the Stiltman's funeral. The spirit of Armada lives on in the Miles Morales villain Rabble, who's able to talk to machines. Maybe we'll see him as a folly to Iron Man? Just like some more villains on this list. Sandstorm. Sandstorm is the product of an experiment based on biosamples from Sandman and the ultra well-known Thor villain Quicksand. Tony Traynor was advised against performing the experiment, but did so anyway, and after being caught in a massive explosion, was encased in an amorphous shell of Quicksand and Sandman's microwave-bombarded particles. Tony went on a rampage across Empire State University before being incapacitated by Spider-Man. Quicksand and Sandman showed up after being drawn there by their particles. Sandstorm managed to pull himself together into a humanoid form, sporting a fused grit armor. A huge fight broke out between the Sand People and Spider-Man. Quicksand joined forces with Sandstorm against Spidey and Sandman. Spider-Man took Sandstorm down by throwing a hunk of reverse polarized shrapnel at him. Traynor was then taken away by the police afterward and hasn't been seen since. I mean, the guy never really stood a chance. Quicksand was a Sandman knockoff, and she didn't really take off. Now she still does show up from time to time, but I would like to see Tony return in some capacity. Maybe he can carve out a name for himself against Miles or one of the other Spider people out there. He could be their Sandman. Cell 12. Cell 12 were a group of cybernetically enhanced mercenaries. The team was made up of Nardi, Lasher, Brammer, and Argos. They were hired by the Hobgoblin, who was sporting a criminally underrated cybernetic look at the time, to keep Peter Parker away from Seward Traynor, a man tied to Ben Reilly, who was Spider-Man at the time. They battered a semi-powerless Peter around to deter him from continuing his investigation into Seward Traynor and the Multivex Corporation. When they did face Spider-Man, they didn't fare very well. Ben messed them up and they only got away thanks to a save from the Hobgoblin. While guarding Seward Traynor's lab, they found Peter lurking around. Cell 12 captured him and were going to kill him, but Spider-Man made the save. Spidey and Pete made embarrassingly short work of the team. They managed to get away once again thanks to a distraction from Hobgoblin. Now Hobgoblin may have saved them twice before, but his patience had run out when they asked for payment for their services. Hobby refused and flew off, but not before blowing up the building Cell 12 was inside. Cell 12 haven't been seen since their demise at the hands of the Hobgoblin. I thought these guys were so cool as a kid, and looking back now, they kinda look like a Serpent Society knockoff. Now in saying that, I would like to see them show up again. Maybe they and Armada could team up to take on Iron Man. They could be working for Roxxon. Who knows? There is definitely more that could be done with these guys. Delilah. Delilah is another villain to debut during Ben Reilly's time as Spider-Man. She was a highly skilled assassin who worked for a crime boss named The Rose, Jacob Conover, not Kingpin's son. She first encountered Ben when she was trying to assassinate his boss. Delilah failed in this mission thanks to Ben. The next time Delilah fought Spider-Man, Peter was back in the costume. She and Rose decided to repower Electro in the hopes of defeating Spidey, but that failed too. The most significant thing she was involved in was probably the resurrection of Dr. Octopus. While Spidey was going through his identity crisis, he adopted 4 different personas after being framed for murder. One of his personas, Ricochet, teamed up with Delilah to take down the Black Tarantula. They fought Roughhouse and Bloodscream, 2 Wolverine villains who were under Tarantula's employ. Bloodscream took Delilah out and she had to be rushed to hospital. Now, not much of Delilah was seen after this. She joined a watered-down version of the Sinister Six and popped up in a couple more series, but hasn't been seen since. Personally, I think Delilah would be a great villain to face Black Cat, Daredevil, either of them, or the new Punisher. And that was a look at just a few of Spider-Man's forgotten villains, and believe me, there's a bunch more. In fact, I'm probably going to make a series out of this concept because some of these villains are awesome and deserve much more recognition. Had you heard of these villains before this video? Would you like to see more from them? Please let me know in the comments below. I've been Rambling Rob, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you soon.